right, so today we're diving into some Hindu mythology and philosophy.
Oh, fun.
I love this stuff, and you guys sent in some fascinating material
Yes.
about Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva.
Oh, cool.
And it's all woven together in this way that, it reminds me of those old fables.
Right.
The ones your grandparents would tell you, like with these hidden morals.
Yes.
You don't realize that they're trying to teach you something until later.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious to see what we dig up here.
Yeah, me too.
So let's start with Brahma.
Okay.
He gets hit with this double curse
Ooh.
by Adhya.
Okay.
Talk about a fall from grace.
Yeah.
First, no one will worship him, okay? Harsh.
Yeah. Right.
But then she adds that his name will be totally forgotten.
Wow.
Even by priests.
Well,
except, of course, for those Hindu priests who specifically take his name.
okay.
It's like getting canceled twice, mythologically speaking.
Yeah.
Why the double whammy?
It's interesting because a double curse is often meant to really emphasize the severity of what happened.
Right.
Like a total severing from the divine.
Oh, wow.
A complete loss of power.
Okay.
And this isn't unique to Hindu mythology, though.
Okay.
Think of Prometheus in Greek mythology, punished for giving fire to humanity.
Of course.
These stories pop up in different cultures, and they kind of reflect anxieties about, natural order.
Yeah.
And what are the consequences for upsetting that, even for someone in a position of power?
Right, even for a god.
Right.
And speaking of consequences,
Yes.
there's this detail about Adhya's descendants that really struck me.
Okay. The text describes them as profiting from sexuality.
Okay.
It even uses the phrase lustful kinder, which is just, it's pretty direct.
Yeah.
It says that they'll have little understanding of the world and be reborn as pigs.
Oh, wow.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Is being reborn as an animal a common theme in Hindu mythology?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, and in this case, pigs often symbolize ignorance or, really giving into base desires.
Mm-hmm.
So this punishment reinforces that idea of karmic cycles.
Right.
Those ripples of actions and their consequences that can really span lifetimes.
Right. It's not just in this life.
It's not just in this life.
It can carry over.
Yeah. What we do matters not just in this moment, but potentially for lifetimes.
And that is where it gets even more intriguing.
Okay.
The source specifically mentions kevda.
Which is both the flower and the fruit of the pandanus tree.
Okay.
It's not every day we get such specific botanical details in these stories.
Interesting.
What do you make of the kefta reference?
So kefta is fascinating because it's used in Indian sweets and rituals.
Mm-hmm.
And, it smells incredible, but it also has this slightly pungent side to it.
Oh, okay.
And I think that kind of duality could be a subtle nod to this interconnected nature of pleasure and consequence.
Okay.
We chase after those things that seem appealing on the surface, like that extra slice of cake.
Right.
Kevda kind of reminds us that even seemingly beautiful or pleasurable things can have hidden depths or consequences that we might not anticipate.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got Brahma twice cursed.
Yeah.
Essentially erased from existence.
Right.
Let's shift gears to Vishnu.
Okay.
Who seems to be on a different path altogether.
Okay.
The source mentions him journeying to the underworld.
Okay.
And get this, he's transformed into a black color due to poison.
What?
Eventually, he returns to his mother, Adhya.
Okay.
It's like he went through a trial by fire and came out changed, transformed.
Yeah, the underworld is often seen as a place of, both death and rebirth across many traditions. Yeah. It's about confronting the unknown, those things that we fear and don't understand.
Yeah.
And the color black often symbolizes dissolution of the ego.
Interesting.
The stripping away of everything familiar.
Oh, wow.
So this journey could symbolize Vishnu's own spiritual evolution, forcing him to confront the nature of reality itself.
Okay, so speaking of reality,
yes.
When Vishnu returns, Adhya gives him specific instructions on how to perceive the true reality.
Okay.
She emphasizes controlling his breath and contemplating his mind as the creator.
Okay.
That sounds an awful lot like meditation to me.
It does.
Right.
Yeah, you're right on the money.
Okay.
Breath control or pranayama and meditation, they're incredibly important in many Hindu traditions.
Right.
And they really help to quiet the noise of the material world. So we can recognize the divine within ourselves.
Okay.
Adhya is guiding Vishnu towards seeing the material world as Maya, as this kind of grand illusion.
Right.
So by stilling his mind, he can potentially break free from the limitations of how we normally perceive things.
And it works. works.
Okay.
Well, for a while at least.
Hey.
He sees colored clouds.
Okay.
White, yellow, green,
right.
red, appearing in the void, and he believes that he's seen the Lord, or Satpurush.
Interesting. You know, it's interesting. Later on in the text, there's this concept of dharmadas that's introduced.
Okay.
And it represents divine law righteousness, the underlying order of the cosmos. So Vishnu is kind of like someone who's starting to understand the rules of a game, right?
Yeah.
But as we'll see, it's not always easy to interpret them correctly.
Right.
His vision of the colored clouds could represent, you know, different aspects of creation or the different ways that divine energy manifests in the universe, all part of that larger dharmadas.
But then there's a twist.
Okay.
A woman tricks Vishnu into believing that Kal is actually the true Satpurush,
Oh,
essentially getting him to misidentify one for the other.
okay.
So who is this Kal, and what's the significance of this deception?
So Kal is often associated with time death, the destroyer, the destructive forces of creation. Now, why would the woman do this?
Right.
It could be that she represents the allure of the material world and how easily it can distract us from the true divine reality.
So even with his newfound insights,
Yeah.
he's still susceptible to mistaking the temporary for the eternal.
Right. It's easy to get caught up in
Yeah.
those appearances.
Right. This whole idea of mistaking something temporary for the eternal, it makes me think about what comes next in the text. The analogy of the moth drawn to a flame.
Right.
It's such a vivid image, and it feels like a warning.
Yeah, it is a powerful image, and it ties directly into what we were just discussing.
Okay.
The moth, you know, drawn to the light and warmth of the flame, ends up being destroyed by it. It represents those who are so captivated by the allure of the material world, embodied by Kal in this case,
Okay.
that they lose sight of the bigger picture.
They get blinded by what seems desirable,
Exactly.
and they end up facing suffering. And then there's the story of Ashtangi,
Okay.
which feels like it takes this idea even further.
Okay.
She's repeatedly cursed and punished for her actions,
Wow.
even though she claims to be following the true Satpurush.
Okay.
To be honest, this one had me scratching my head a bit.
Really?
If she's trying to be righteous, why all the suffering?
Yeah, it highlights that complex interplay of free will and divine will.
Okay.
You know, Ashanti might have good intentions,
Yeah.
but she still has to face the consequences of her actions.
Right.
It's like when you're learning a new skill. Let's say you're learning to bake bread.
Okay.
You can follow all the instructions carefully, but if you haven't mastered the technique yet, you might end up with a burnt loaf.
Right.
The intention was there, but the execution was off.
So it's not enough to just want to do the right thing.
Yeah.
You have to understand what the right thing actually is.
Exactly.
Okay.
Ashtangi's story could be a lesson about the importance of aligning our actions with wisdom.
I like that.
And that's an ongoing process of learning and refining our understanding.
Right.
We're never truly done.
Always a student.
Always a student, exactly.
Which leads us to the parable of the father and daughter.
Okay.
The text doesn't give us their names, which makes it feel more universal somehow.
Interesting.
A father is obligated by societal norms to marry off his daughter, right? And while he's participating in this tradition, he also stresses that she has a responsibility to seek the truth,
Okay.
to remember her true self.
You remember her true self.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is where the text uses color imagery again.
Okay.
It says the daughter forgets who she truly is when she's married, that she essentially takes on the color of her husband.
Oh.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
So it's like she's subsumed by his identity, conforming to these societal expectations at the expense of her own sense of self.
Precisely. It's a powerful illustration of how easily societal conditioning can obscure our true nature.
Yeah.
Those external pressures to conform the roles that we're expected to play, they can make us forget who we really are.
Wow.
And this speaks to that ongoing tension that many spiritual traditions wrestle with. How to live in the world but not be completely consumed by it.
Right.
How to honor our commitments while remaining true to ourselves and to that inner spark of the divine.
Yeah. It's almost like she's being painted a different color, you know, losing her own unique shade in the process.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how many of us kind of take on colors, so to speak, that aren't truly our own.
Right.
Because of, you know, societal expectations or family pressures or...
It's a question worth pondering, for sure.
It is.
And it circles back to that recurring theme we've been uncovering.
Right.
Perception versus reality.
Right.
We see it in Brahma's curse, right? His story becomes what others perceive it to be, or rather don't perceive it to be.
Right.
It's in Vishnu's journey to the underworld.
Right.
Where he has to confront the limitations of his own senses, his assumptions about what is real.
Even that detail about the keftas, remember this beautiful, fragrant flower?
Right.
That also has this kind of darker, pungent side.
Exactly.
It feels like a reminder that things aren't always what they appear to be.
Mm-hmm.
We have to be willing to kind of look beyond the surface to question what we think we know.
Right. And what I find particularly compelling is how the material emphasizes this isn't a one-and-done deal.
Okay.
You know, this discernment, this ability to see through the illusions of the material world.
Right.
It's an ongoing practice, a constant striving.
It's like we're all navigating a world full of, smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
Trying to remember who we are amidst all these distractions.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And it leads us to a question that I think is worth sitting with for a while. If the material world is in some sense an illusion, a kind of elaborate stage set, how do we reconcile our actions, our desires, with the pursuit of true understanding?
Right.
How do we play the game without losing sight of who we really are?
That is such a powerful question to leave us with.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that this whole deep dive, it isn't just about these ancient stories and mythology.
Right.
It's about understanding ourselves and how we choose to move through the world.
Exactly. These stories, they act as mirrors reflecting back to us our own challenges and aspirations.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with this.
Yeah.
How do you perceive the world around you?
That's it.
What colors? What stories are you choosing to embrace?
Good question.
And perhaps more importantly, what will you choose to let go of as you continue on your own journey of discovery?